Scalpel. Cutting and incising tissues. Scissors. Cutting tissues, for example, Mayo scissors. For heavy tissue, medecins scissors. For delicate tissue. Teniculum. A hook-like tool used to grasp and stabilize the cervix during the procedure. Chemostats. Clamping blood vessels to control bleeding. Forceps. Grasping and holding tissues. For example, medecins forceps for fine tissue. Needle. Suturing wounds or tissues. Suction device. Removing blood and fluids from the surgical site. Surgical drapes. Covering the area around the surgical site to maintain sterility. Surgical gloves. Protecting hands and maintaining sterility. Needle threader. Assisting in threading needles. Harrington retractor. Retracting large abdominal organs. Kidney tray. Curved metal tray to hold small items. Surgical scissors. Used to cut tissue or sutures, as needed. Needle holder. Holds needles while suturing or stitching tissue. Electrocautery. Cutting or coagulating tissue with electrical current. Surgical sponge. Absorbing blood and fluids during surgery. Surgical clips. Clamping blood vessels or tissues. Surgical stapler. Closing wounds or surgical incisions. Tissue forceps. Holding delicate tissues during dissection. Bone cutter. Cutting bone during surgery. Chemostatic forceps. Controlling bleeding by clamping vessels. Bipolar forceps. Using electrical current to coagulate tissue. Mayo stand. Holding instruments during surgery. Dackhouse towel clamps. Securing drapes or towels in place. Suction tips. Directing suction to remove fluids. Cautery forceps. Clamping tough tissue or vessels. Alice clamp. Grasping and holding tissue. Bovie. Electrical cautery device for cutting and coagulating. Langenbeck retractor. Retracting tissues to improve visibility. Surgical light. Providing focused illumination during surgery. Sterilizer. Sterilizing surgical instruments. Biopsy forceps. Removing tissue samples for biopsy. Zen retractor. Retracting small or delicate tissues. Ovary clamp. Clamping ovaries during gynecological surgery. Curette. Scraping tissue or debris. Wronger. Removing bone or tough tissue. Mallet. Applying force to surgical instruments, for example, osteotomes. Osteotome. Cutting or chipping bone. retrieve fine. Removing cylindrical sections of bone or tissue. Hemovac drain. Draining fluids from a wound or surgical site. Jackson-Pratt drain. Removing fluid post-surgery through suction. Laparoscope. Viewing inside the abdominal cavity through small incisions. Trocar. Creating access points for laparoscope instruments. Electrocautery pencil. Precise cutting and coagulating with electric current. Dressing forceps. Applying and removing dressings. Pliers. Manipulating or holding small parts. Absorbable suture. Suturing that dissolves over time. Non-absorbable suture. Suturing that remains in place until removed. Umbilical clamp. Clamping the umbilical cord in neonates. Potts-Smith scissors. Dissecting vessels and delicate tissue. Doan clamp. Controlling bleeding in the bowel. DeBakey forceps. Grasping delicate tissues. Glover's forceps. Holding and manipulating delicate tissues. Vires needle. Insufflating the abdominal cavity for laparoscope surgery. Dabcock forceps. Holding delicate structures such as intestines. Artery forceps. Clamping arteries or blood vessels. Sponge forceps. Handling sponges during surgery. Surgical pen light. Providing illumination during procedures. Surgical table. Supporting and positioning the patient. Surgical retractor. Holding back tissue or organs. Straight needle holder. Holding needles for suturing. Curved needle holder. Providing better control in tight spaces. Surgical tweezers. Precision handling of small objects. Rectal speculum. Viewing the rectum. Cystoscope. Viewing the bladder and urethra. Ureteroscope. Viewing the ureters. Colonoscope. Viewing the colon. Endoscope. Viewing internal organs and cavities. Tonsillectomy forceps. Removing tonsils. Deck vessel clamp. Clamping tissue or vessels. Nerve stimulator. Identifying and monitoring nerves during surgery. Bronchoscope. Viewing the airways and lungs. Tracheostomy tube. Providing an airway for breathing. Uterine sound. Measuring the depth and direction of the uterus. Suction tube. Removing fluids from the surgical site. Cutting needle. Suturing with a needle that has a sharp edge. Curved scissors. Cutting curved or difficult to reach tissues. Blunt dissector. Separating tissues with minimal trauma. Angled needle holder. Holding needles at an angle for better access. Towel clip. Securing surgical drapes or towels. Surgical cryo forceps. Clamping larger blood vessels. Surgical needle. Suturing tissues or wounds. Scalpel handle. Holding scalpel blades. Suprapubic catheter. Draining urine directly from the bladder. Skin stapler. Closing skin incisions. Bone runner. Removing bone or dense tissue. Surgical hoax. Retracting tissues or organs. Goniometer. Measuring angles of bone or joint. Dressing scissors. Cutting dressings and bandages. Graft knife. Shaping grafts for transplantation. Surgical wire. Securing tissues or bone fragments. Bipolar forceps. Coagulating or cutting tissues with electrical current. Surgical vacuum. Removing fluids from the site. Bladder drainage tube. Draining urine from the bladder. Chisel. Shaping or cutting bone. Surgical ruler. Measuring dimensions during surgery. Ligating clips. Securing blood vessels or tissues. Pediatric forceps. Grasping and holding small or delicate tissues in children. Cholecystectomy graspers. Holding the gallbladder during removal. Bowel clamp. Clamping bowel or intestines. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and leave any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.